All right, good morning, everyone. Oh, come on now, you know how we do it. I said good morning. There we go. Folks, we are in for a treat. We have a wonderful panel today on the subject of school-based sports and really how critical they are for the development of our children and to help all of our kids reach their full potential. Now, we got an all-star cast here full of panelists, and they're might be a little nervous. I told them we had to follow Russell Westbrook, but they're gonna do an amazing job here. So to my left, I have Mr. Tom Farrey, founder and executive director of the Aspen Institute Project Play. In the middle here, we have Dr. Tiffany Barry, who is the associate director for Claremont Evaluation Center, the Claremont Graduate University. And then last but not least, we have Mr. Edwin Lopez, who is a principal here in the LA Unified School District. Let's give him a round of applause, y'all. Now, for me especially, this is really important. As someone who grew up in a single-parent household, who attended 8 different public schools, who was extremely involved with sports, I can't tell you how impactful it was for me to my development as a young man in terms of just learning discipline, teamwork, ethics. And so, and that's just my personal experience. And I can honestly say that the access to sports and all the different schools I attended probably saved my life. So if we can just start with what are some of the general benefits we see from school-based programs? Tom, I'll begin with you.
I mean, look, the research is clear, and this isn't even like guesswork. We know that kids who play sports are 1/10 as likely to be obese. They're more likely to stay in school. They're more likely to go to college. They're more likely to get good jobs coming out of college. They're less likely to suffer any, a range of chronic diseases, including 13 types of cancer. They're more likely to be active parents. And because they're active parents, they're good role models for their kids. They're twice as likely to have active kids. So there's this incredibly virtuous cycle that can be unleashed if we can simply get kids off the couch without running them into the ground.
Wow. You hear that, folks? Getting them off the couch, but also we're not running them into the ground.
Yeah, concussions, burnout, all the stuff that we read about.
Absolutely. Dr. Barry.
Yeah, so we did a study, finished it up a couple of years ago with the Beyond the Bell branch at LAUSD, and we found a range of positive benefits for kids. And these are kids in LA at, LAUSD middle schools run through Beyond the Bell. And we found academic benefits, physical health benefits, social emotional benefits. And I think, you expect the physical health benefits because they're moving their bodies, they're engaging in play. But there were also social emotional benefits like increased self-efficacy. So their belief in their ability to do something and do something well. Increased growth mindset. So their belief that effort actually matters and that you can improve through feedback. And then there was, and there's been a lot of other social emotional benefits from other studies kind of collectively that have been done, looking at self-regulation, self-management, a lot of other kind of social emotional skills, which I think is going to be talked about a little bit later today. And then we also found academic benefits. So when we compared kids who were statistically matched before they got into middle school, we were able to compare them to sports participants, and the sports participants were more likely to like school more, report feeling more connected to school, had more positive attitudes towards school, as well as attended school up to 13 additional days per year. And then while we focused on middle school, there's also been studies similar to what Tom had just mentioned about high school graduation rates, that sports participants are more likely to graduate high school. They're more likely to have higher academic GPAs, which again, it makes perfect sense because if you like school more, you feel more connected, you feel supported by your coaches, and then you're attending school more, then those academic benefits can accrue over time.
Absolutely. So now, Edwin, you're the boots on the ground. As a principal, you see it every day. So how do you incorporate that how do you incorporate sport play on your campus? How do you develop the culture among the staff and the teachers? What does that look like?
It's very interesting because I love the fact that, all the statistics that our panelists are talking about. One of the things that we definitely focus on is the kids that are in the shadows, the newcomers. A lot of the times we use sports, and I will use myself as an example. I came here at the age of 12 from El Salvador and not knowing a word of English. So what was that glue? What was that social emotional connection that I wanted to have to my school, to other kids? Soccer, sports, and that was the connection that I started building with other kids, with my coaches, with teachers, right? The value of having good grades in order to play. Those are non-negotiables, but then a lot of the times kids who are in the shadows, like I said, right, that don't actually step up or are not encouraged, those are the kids that we focus on and trying to bring on the sports field, on the basketball court, volleyball, whatever the sport may be. So then we want to make sure that our coaches at our schools make those connections with the students, because that in itself would play a bigger role as the kids progress into their grades. And that's a good example. We had a student who arrived here from El Salvador 4 years ago, not knowing a word of English. She played soccer, played volleyball, played basketball. Luckily, unfortunately, because of her grades and because of everything that she did, she just got accepted to UCLA. And that's in itself is it's a great motivator. So then those are the kids that we focus on a lot more. And I say simply a lot more because we have the earlier here in the panels, I heard a key word is that during the pandemic, the kids that had the access to playing, those were the kids who were out there, right? But what happened to the kids that did not have the social means or the financial means to go out to a different state and where the COVID restrictions weren't as tight, right? So then those are the kids that we also want to be able to help out. And so yeah.
Okay, so Edwin, so what I heard was sports is a universal language. Doesn't matter where you come from, what part of the world, what community, how much money you have or don't. It's a universal language that can bring people together, especially students.
Yes.
Tiffany, let's talk about the research you've conducted on after-school programs. Share a little bit with us about what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the things that we've learned from not only my work and our collective work in the field is the importance of program quality. So the benefits that you see kind of across the board in multiple developmental domains don't just happen by chance. They happen through proper staff training, coaches training, having the coaches build a strong relationship with their youth, giving them the right kinds of opportunities that are going to lead to these positive outcomes. Some of the work that we've done looked at program experience. So are youth having the right kinds of experiences in these programs? And some of these experiences are more impactful than others. Some of the most impactful that we've seen through the Beyond the Bell program has been, and we heard it echoed in previous panels too, is the importance of giving youth choice, giving youth voice, giving them leadership opportunities, giving them autonomy, giving them some say over what they're doing and how they're doing it, as well as having opportunities to focus on self-improvement rather than kind of peer-to-peer comparison, being able to accept feedback in a way that supports their own growth and development. Those have been some of the strongest predictors for being able to kind of accrue some of these benefits. So it is kind of a word of caution a bit because, as an external evaluator working with a lot of community-based sports programs, sometimes folks know about the program quality piece and know that it's important, but don't necessarily evaluate it. So they assume that all of these experiences are happening, but without careful measurement, we're not actually sure. So being able to not only look at some of these outcomes that we see, but also being able to develop the measurement tools and systems to make sure that those right experiences are happening and the coaches are having the kinds of relationships that we would expect in order to benefit them academically, social, emotionally, et cetera.
Now, let's expand on that a little bit, because it's not just about giving a kid a ball, right, and just saying, go play. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. What does that look like? What does that transformational benefit look like between students and staff?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I think about some of this work, we've done a lot of quantitative measurement, but I think stories are really powerful. So we also have done some work looking at interviewing athletes who are in high school. And we had really talked a bit about this academic transformation, because sometimes folks are still, like, they almost don't believe it, that, you know, you're not doing homework after school, you know, while you're playing sports. So how does sports lead to some of these academic benefits? And I remember interviewing an athlete from a school in the Valley, and he was talking about how his identity was developed through sport. So he was saying things like, if I'm on the court and I'm the hardest worker in the room and I put in a lot of effort, I work hard, I'm the first to show up, the last to leave, I'm not afraid of a challenge, I don't become a different person when I go sit in math class. You know, I'm developing an identity of who I am as a person and how that then can apply and transform all of these other contexts in which they live. So I thought it was a powerful kind of voice from the field.
No, absolutely. And no, Tom, let's talk about this, advocacy. What can we do to effectively advocate for these school-based programs and break down the idea that they're only worthwhile if you're winning, if you have a winning team?
Yeah, so we just spent 2 years on a project called Reimagining School Sports in America. And 60 leaders, educational leaders, National Federation of High Schools. We got all the folks we thought should be at the table. And then we did a national search for the most innovative high schools out there, gave $160,000 to the best ones, including one here in LA, the charter school winner. Who's that?
Right, shout out to the scholarship winner.
Anyway, so we did the research and we tried to figure out how do you grow, how do you change the school-based model in a way that engages more students? Because while we talk about school sports being great for kids, the fact is, and we know this from the data, that only 39% of kids play high school sports in this country. So, you know, that means 6 out of 10 kids are not being exposed to a school-based experience. So I think the key is advocating for a new model for school sports in this country, one that improves the experience for the 4 and 10. Maybe you can pull up the slide we have here. One that improves, you can see the traditional model on the left here representing the 40%. It's largely about interscholastic sports. That's the model that engages the 4 and 10 out of there. But we're advocating for a new concept of school sports, which is that, you know, we know from our data that kids do want to play sports in different forms. But does it always have to be interscholastic? No, you can bring back intramurals in some cases. You can connect kids to fitness clubs in the area. You can create student-led clubs. I mean, not everything has to be the interscholastic model where teams play, you know, the best kids in one school play the best kids in another. It will take innovation, it will take policy, it will take investment to make this kind of thing happen. But I think it starts with a recognition that the model we have in place right now, which has been in place for 50, 60 years, needs to be updated, especially coming out of COVID, where we know that kids have these mental health challenges, physical fitness rates are way down. We cannot double down on what we've done previously. We've got to be much more creative. And there's no silver bullet solution on how you move to this student-centered model that we're talking about. And you're welcome to, this lives online, our playbook, and it's in your resources as well. But it starts with that. It starts with the recognition that we need to do more than just interscholastic.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing all the hard work for us. So folks, if you scan the QR code, you'll have access to this resource, to that playbook. Take that back. Take a look at it. Implement some of that research. We have to do it. And the fact that you said 39%, right? Just 39% of folks actually have participated in school-based sports. I want to do a live audience poll. Raise your hand if you played school-based sports. Show of hands. All right? That's literally 100% of the audience. And how many of y'all would say that it impacted your life profoundly? Fantastic. So that's awesome. So,
but it's important for you to understand that you're different. That you are in that 40%. That there are 60% of kids who are not.
Who are not.
You know, especially kids who are new to this country, kids who are LGBTQ. There are certain kids who are just below average athletes, kids with disabilities. There are other populations of kids who are just not at the center of the school-based model that we need to be much more intentional about from the moment they enter 9th grade.
Access, and equitable access, I should say, is equitable access. It will be key to reimagining what it looks like in the future. And we shouldn't wait, we should do it now. So Edwin, as a principal, how do you deal with the stigma of sports are just nice to have, but not a necessity? How do you break that down as a principal on your campus and within the district?
It's interesting to hear the data, right? Where you get with the 39% of students who play sports, one of the research research that we based our coaching and our approach to is that you start with about 30 million kids, right, youth sports throughout the country. Out of those, as a homegrown or youth, kids who participate because one, they want to have fun, right? They want to belong, a sense of belonging. They want to build relationships, not only with their peers, but coaches. And I truly believe that at the school level, it is imperative that as administrators, as teachers, as coaches, we emphasize the importance of inclusiveness, right? To be able to not just throw a blanket out there or a fishnet to pull the kids in, but making those connections with the students. Because I really think that those will be long lasting and will create better results as the kids get older and see the importance of teamwork, see the importance of working together with other kids, having falling under one philosophy of not just winning, but being able to participate, being able to belong. And I really think that that's really important at the school level.
100%. Edwin, as a boots on the ground, and with the political climate we have with just equity and inclusion in the sports, how do you deal with some of those challenging conversations from the community, if they ever come up, with regards to access to sports and making them more equitable? Because we know that there are a lot of folks having those conversations across the country, and with you being on the ground, how do you handle those difficult conversations?
A lot of the times it's advocacy, right? Having
Yes.
partnerships.
Yes.
LA84 is a huge partner of Beyond the Bell with LA Unified, where we want to be able to reach out to and to the masses, the communities, the low-income communities, right? Because a lot of the times, parents who quite don't understand because of lack of information, the importance of what an athletic program will bring to the school, not only in the sense of the social aspect of it, but being able to maintain, keeping the kids, their attendance, right, their grades, being able to meet certain requirements in order to go beyond post-secondary education. And it brings us back to where you start with 30 million kids, let's say, right? And how many of those kids will ultimately get a college scholarship? Not that many, right? So then it's being able to support those students, not just in the sense of the athletic component, but then the academic component.
Right.
And how those kids will better our society as a whole.
100%. And you and I had a great conversation backstage, and we talked about the word student athlete, and the first word being student, and how that really drives the academics and drives their development as a youth. And so thank you for touching on that. Now, Dr. Berry, let's talk more about the advocacy and solutions. We know it's linked to higher attendance, social emotional health. We know the benefits, but what can folks do in this room to advocate effectively for these programs?
I mean, I think one piece is just making sure that we're aware of the data and the research, so that when you're talking with parents, when you're talking with, board members, when you're talking with, other principals, being able to understand that there are some concrete benefits and how to really champion this across school campuses. That many times we see programs flourish when there's strong leadership. So there's a principal who values it, who cares about it, who can push it. I mean, from a research lens, there's not many programs out there that really develop the whole child. There's many specialized programs that look at different pieces of promoting child development in certain domains. But sports has this magical ability to entice youth, to engage them, and can develop the whole child. child. So being able to kind of talk to the right people, being able to get principals to champion, be able to get, and partner with other programs that already have structures in place, like the Beyond the Bell program, that has, the training, that has the coaches, that has the commitment and value for doing this work. There's already systems and structures in place. It's like how to tap into that. And I think a lot of it does come with, leadership at the site level and really championing it.
Leadership at the site level, but that leadership also has to be empowered by
That's
those
right.
above them.
That's
whether,
right.
whether it be the superintendent, the school board, there has to be buy-in at every level in order to implement some of the work that Tom talked about, which is reimagining school-based sports and the playbook. And so as we close out this panel, leave us with some final thoughts. Tom, I'll begin with you.
I mean, look, I won't run through each of the 8 strategies that we've identified based upon our national search of the most, finding the most innovative high schools out there. You can check it out. But I will point out one that I think any educator in this room can do, or even an advocate of school-based sports could ask your school to do, which are student surveys, student interest surveys. Basically, they're not that hard to do. We do them within our program all the time when we go into communities and get into the schools and figure out what are they playing, what do they want to play, why are they not playing, and you can start to think about addressing the barriers. We don't do that in sports, youth sports and school sports in general. Mostly adults designing programs, usually the same programs that have been there for however many years. But if you simply put in, you pass out a survey at the start of each year, ask these students, what do you want to play? You're going to find opportunities to give them what they want, and then design from there. That's how you create sticky programs, is by giving youth. Gen Z needs to have a voice in these programs. They feel largely disenfranchised right now. Like adults across all institutions are not listening to them. This is a very simple thing, a student interest survey that you pass out at the start of each year, look at the data, talk to your athletic director, your principal should get behind it, and move from there. You might be surprised. A lot of kids we know at a national level, they want, as they move into high school, they want just fitness stuff. They're not always looking for the team sport kind of stuff. They want second tier stuff that we haven't really been thinking about. You can localize it to your own school and design from there and make a difference.
And I think that's great. Folks, basically what Tom said, it's not rocket science, okay? Sometimes I think we forget about our most important asset, which is the students and their voice, and they want to be heard. And you're right. A lot of students that I've talked to said, hey, how come we don't have yoga or other means of health and wellness programs? And so spot on with that, student survey, student voice. Thank you, Tom. Dr. Berry.
I think echoing what Tom said, really thinking about building programs from the bottom up rather than the top down. If giving kids voice, choice, autonomy, and opportunity is going to be so impactful, then how do we build that in, not just at the beginning, which I think is critically important to be able to kind of build ground up programs, but then throughout. How do we continuously engage them in a way that builds their autonomy, their voice and choice kind of throughout? And then I think the other thing would be to really think about systematic evaluation. I feel like, okay, of course, an evaluator is going to talk about evaluation, but many times, programs want to value evaluation, but it's difficult to get it systematized into your programs so that on an ongoing basis, wait, this isn't hitting with kids. Like, we don't want to wait till the end of the year to find out that it's not hitting with kids. We want to find out early so that we can make some systematic improvements throughout. So really thinking about building in, evaluation support, research support, and then I think the other thing is investing in coaches. Like, we have to think about, and I think it even was said earlier on a panel about, we need to treat our coaches with respect. We need to value them. They are the touch points that reconnect kids to school if they feel disconnected. They're the mentor, they're the supporter. So how do we invest in them to ensure that, all of these fabulous experiences can help kids thrive?
Thank you, Dr. Berry, and I agree. Sometimes a coach is just like teachers are the counselor, the mentor.
They're everything.
Parent figure, you name it. And so thank you for touching on that. Edwin, close us out with your final thoughts.
For me, it would be creating an environment where we nourish student social emotional safety, a place where they could come in and be themselves. I truly 100% agree with Tom as far as having get the students to buy in, right? If a student grown, you will get more students to come in, and that's one of the things that we have at our school, right? Where if we have at least 5 kids who are interested in a sport, we're gonna get it going. We're gonna find a way to fund it, and that's where things lay out, right? If students want to play something, it's up to the adults to be able to provide whatever means necessary to get those kids out there. And I really think that that's the important point.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So today we discussed the benefits, we discussed how to effectively advocate, but more importantly, we discuss solutions. So now the ball's in your court. It's up to you all to take it and implement some of these strategies and stay connected. Our kids can't wait. They can't wait. And so if you want more information, please scan your QR code. You'll find a lot of the research that we were shared up here today online via the QR code. And again, let's give our panelists a round of applause.